Hello, everybody! It was recommended by several people that I make episodes that are more in-depth about each topic I talked about in my first podcast. So instead of a planting guide, today I'm going to be talking about soil pH and nutrients. I'll start with soil pH. Most of us know that soil pH is the measurement of the acidity in the soil. But to be more specific, pH is the measurement of the concentration of hydrogen ions in the soil. Every time you go down one number on the pH scale, the number of hydrogen ions is going up by a factor of 10. This means that it is a reverse scale. As the amount of hydrogen ions goes up, the pH number goes down. A soil's pH depends upon a couple of different factors. First, it depends on what kind of rock the soil was before it was broken down into soil. Then it depends on what broke it down, climate, vegetation, or time. All of these factors tend to lower soil pH. Soil pH is normally between 3 and 10. A soil pH below 6.5 is considered acidic, between 6.5 and 7.5 is considered neutral, and above 7.5 is considered alkaline. Soils with a pH lower than 5.5 are considered strongly acidic, and pHs higher than 9 are considered strongly alkaline. Now, more acidic soils tend to have more of some nutrients and less of others, and the same with alkaline soils. Strongly acidic soils tend to have too much aluminum and manganese, and too little calcium and magnesium, while strongly alkaline soils tend to have too little zinc, copper, boron, and manganese, and too much sodium. This also affects the microorganisms that live in the soil. In acidic or alkaline soils, there tend to be less microorganisms that are essential to plant health. Some plants prefer more acidic soils because they need these particular nutrient combinations, such as blueberries. There are also plants that prefer more alkaline soils for the same reason, such as honeysuckle. Most plants, though, prefer neutral soil. In my previous podcast, I explained that acidic soils will lead to yellowing foliage on your plants, while alkaline soils will lead to dark green or reddish hues in your plants. This would mean that you would have to wait until you are already growing plants to find out what pH range your soil is in. This is not ideal, so I will tell you a simple way to test your soil at home. It won't be as accurate as lab tests or home test kits, but it can give you an idea. First, take a sample of your soil. You will want to take multiple small samples in different areas of your garden space. This way, you will get a good overall view of your soil pH. Then add a half cup of water to about a trowel full of soil. Then add a half cup of vinegar. If it bubbles, you have alkaline soil. If there are any bubbles, you will need to amend your soil. Then do the same thing, only add a half cup of baking soda instead of vinegar. If that bubbles, then you have acidic soil. In this case, if it bubbles just a little bit, you probably don't need to amend your soil since most soil is slightly acidic. If there are lots of bubbles, then you will need to amend your soil. You could also buy a pH meter. These show pictures of you sticking the meter directly into the soil. But the electrodes on a pH meter are more meant to be used in water. I would say this means your reading will be more accurate after it has rained, but from what I've read, labs use a 5 water to 1 soil ratio to do their testing. You may want to let your soil soak in water for a day or more for more accurate results. You could also test your soil composition at the same time because the soil will separate into its main parts after being mixed in water and allowed to sit for a while. If your soil is too acidic, you will need to add something to raise the pH. You can use well-rotted manure, lime, or dolomite. Obviously, I am a fan of manure because it is a simple thing to get if you are raising your own animals. But you can also get dolomitic limestone, which lowers pH best. There are a lot more things you can use to make your soil more acidic if it is too alkaline. You can use pine needles, coffee grounds, wood ash, or sulfur. Now in this case, I generally mention the wood ash because most places in America you can find some kind of wood to burn. You can get sulfur in powdered and pellet form. I recommend the pellets because there's less of a health risk than with powder. Make sure you don't get the fungicide sulfur powder. It is needlessly more expensive than regular sulfur powder. A couple of important notes. Sandier soil with less organic material will change pH more drastically with your amendments. Also, any soil type will take at least a week to change pH, so don't test your soil immediately after you amend it. Now on to nutrients. The three main nutrients for plants are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. These are generally represented with an N, P, and K respectively. Nitrogen is a very important nutrient. It is found in plant proteins, hormones, and chlorophyll. Nitrogen in our atmosphere is a source of nitrogen for the soil. Some plants, such as legumes, take atmospheric nitrogen and fix it to the soil with their roots with the help of microorganisms. When factories make fertilizer, they use atmospheric nitrogen to make ammonium sulfate, ammonium nitrate, and urea. When applied to soil, these make nitrogen in mineral form, nitrate, that the plants can take up. Bone meal, blood meal, coffee grounds, leaf mulch, manure, and fish emulsion all contain nitrogen in different amounts. Coffee grounds will also increase the acidity in your soil. Phosphorus helps with the transfer of energy from the sun to plants. It helps early root growth as well as hastens maturity. The mineral form of phosphorus, phosphate, is made from rock phosphate and sulfuric acid. All manure contains phosphorus, especially that of grain-fed animals. Bone meal, crab and shrimp waste, burned cucumber skins, hair compost, and mushroom compost all contain phosphorus in different amounts. Burned cucumber skins will decrease the acidity of your soil. Potassium increases plant vigor and disease resistance. It also helps in the production and movement of starches, thus helping a plant produce fruit. Heavily grazed fields tend to be low in potassium. The most common source of potassium is potash. Fruit compost, coffee grounds, and wood ash are all good sources of potassium. Coffee grounds will increase the acidity of your soil, while wood ash will decrease the acidity of your soil. There are also three secondary nutrients that are also very important. They are calcium, magnesium, and sulfur, represented by Ca, Mg, and S, respectively. Calcium deficiency in plants causes stunted growth, a bushy appearance in the plant, misshapen leaves, and brown spots on the leaves. Now, with magnesium deficiency in plants, there is a yellowing between leaf veins, followed by reddish-brown tints. With sulfur deficiency in plants, you'll see a yellow striping on leaves and short, spindly stems. Plants use calcium for root growth, root hair growth, and leaf development. Lime, gypsum, dolomite, calcium phosphate, and calcium sulfate are all common sources of calcium. Two other sources of calcium are crushed eggshells and chalk. Yes, regular school chalk can be crushed for quick-release calcium fertilizer, or a whole stick can be buried next to the plant for a slow-release calcium fertilizer. Magnesium is a key component in chlorophyll. Without it, plants cannot convert sun energy into food. Sandy soils in heavy rainfall areas tend to have a magnesium deficiency. Using too much potassium fertilizer can also cause a magnesium deficiency. Epsom salt, K-mag, and magnesia are all common sources of magnesium for plants. Since all plants contain some amount of magnesium, compost made of mostly plant material is a decent source of magnesium for your plants. Sulfur is a part of amino acids in plant proteins, and thus helps with the energy-making process. The reason many plants have a strong odor and flavor, such as onions and cabbage, is because they contain high amounts of sulfur. Calcium sulfate, gypsum, elemental sulfur, and sulfate of ammonia are the most commonly used sulfur fertilizers. A natural source of sulfur is manure, especially from grass-fed animals. Lastly, we have trace elements. There are hundreds of trace elements, but the main 6 are iron, Fe, manganese, Mn, copper, Cu, zinc, Zn, boron, B, and molybdenum, Mo. With an iron deficiency, plants' leaves will turn pale yellow to white between the veins. New foliage may be completely white. Manganese deficiency in plants causes pale green between the veins on the leaves, as well as brown spots. Now with copper deficiency, you will see pale green foliage as well as browning and twisting of the tips of leaves. A zinc deficiency will cause leaves to turn yellow, then bronze. A boron deficiency can cause deformed root and stem tips. The resulting fruits are usually deformed too. In root crops, it can cause the center of the root to be brown, known as brown heart. Broccoli and cauliflower will have hollow, discolored, and misshapen stems. Molybdenum deficiency is harder to diagnose because the symptoms are the same as nitrogen deficiency. I would say if you give a plant nitrogen and it doesn't get better, then you should try giving it molybdenum. If you see nitrogen-fixing plants showing signs of nitrogen deficiency, then it is definitely molybdenum they are needing. Iron is a part of many compounds that regulate and promote plant growth. The easiest way to get iron into your iron-deficient plants is by spraying them with Manure Tea. You make Manure Tea the same way you make compost tea, only with manure. Just put your manure in a container of water and let it sit in the sun for a couple of hours. You can paint your Manure Tea container black so you can use it in the winter as well. Manganese is a key component in photosynthesis. Most of the time, people use manganese sulfate to treat manganese deficiency. It seems that the way to naturally increase manganese in your soil is to act as if you are trying to alleviate acidic soil. Copper is a big part of enzyme development in plants. It is important in forming chlorophyll as well as seeds. Chelated copper is most commonly used to alleviate copper deficiency. A fertilizer made of ground kidneys and livers can be used to add copper to your soil naturally. Zinc is a part of the production of hormones that promote stem elongation and leaf broadening. Most commonly, zinc sulfate is used to remedy zinc deficiency. High phosphorus fertilizers will decrease the amount of zinc in your soil. Simply adding compost to your plants can increase the amount of zinc in your soil. Boron plays a part in building cell walls. Deficiency in boron also causes a calcium deficiency, so you will commonly see symptoms of both at the same time. Generally, borax is used to increase boron in soils. Composted milk products, apples, and potatoes are all good sources of boron for your plants. Molybdenum is necessary for the survival of nitrogen-fixing organisms. For this reason, molybdenum is very important to nitrogen-fixing plants. It is also needed for proteins from soluble nitrogen to be processed. Molybdenum trioxide and sodium molybdate are both commonly used for molybdenum deficiency. A fertilizer made from ground livers can add molybdenum to your soil. So as you can see, soil pH and nutrients can be a complicated subject. I hope you enjoyed it. That's all I have for today. If you would like a copy of my book, or you just have questions, email me at nuttatelloguides@gmail.com. That's nuttatiellogUIDES@gmail.com. Continuing our journey to self-sufficiency, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.